Welcome to the Legal Leaders Podcast with Ali Rock. Aaron Brogan is the founder of Brogan Law, a boutique law firm specializing in cryptocurrency, fintech, and emerging technology. After graduating from Harvard Law, Aaron spent 6 years in big law in New York, first as a litigator before pivoting to crypto and fintech law at McDermott. In this episode, Aaron shares his inspiring journey from navigating big law to launching his own firm in New York. He discusses the legal challenges of the crypto industry, his experience representing major players in blockchain and finance, and what it takes to build a successful law practice in an evolving regulatory landscape. You can reach Aaron at aaron@broganlaw.xyz. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Hey, Aaron, it's great to have you on the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Before we jump into your incredible career in New York big law and your entrepreneurship journey, let's talk golf. So I did some research on you online. I saw you wrote a golf book called Let the Big Dog Eat. How did that come about?
Let the Big Dog Eat by Aaron Brogan. Available wherever books are sold. Amazon, that's an old cover. I've been golfer my whole life. I started playing when I was really young. I mean, legitimately, like the youngest photos of me are at a golf course with my dad. My dad's a competitive golfer in Maine. And so I was really lucky to get to do that from a young age. I had kind of a sordid journey with it over the years, which you can read about in my book, Let the Big Dog Eat by Aaron Brogan, available anywhere books are sold. And so I had spent a lot of time just thinking about golf, trying to get better, trying to play better. I played high school golf. I played in tournaments in Maine, that kind of thing. I was really very dedicated to it.
Yeah.
And so when the pandemic came, I think a lot of us were at a loss a little bit and looking for different things to do. And I had a little bit of time. And I had just written, actually, as a lawyer, I had just written a big appellate brief. It was like 100 pages. It's like, I don't know, like a 40,000 word appellate brief. And so I was like, well, 40,000 words is almost a book. And I did that. And I know a lot about golf, so maybe I'll just do this and see how it goes. I basically did it for fun, just as like a side project to see if I could put something together. And then after I had written like a manuscript in principle, I read it and I thought it was pretty good. So I
Nice.
decided to self-publish it. I put it out on Amazon, then eventually I sold it to a publisher. Now it's out with Velo Press. Available anywhere books are sold. Let the Big Dog Eat by Aaron Brogan.
Amazing. That's such a cool story. I saw it on Amazon. It has great reviews. So yeah, that's
I hope you
pretty
picked
cool.
up a copy.
I will do that. I will do
Good,
that.
good, yeah.
But amazing. Let's talk about sort of your legal career. You went to undergrad at University of Chicago. You studied political science. Did you sort of know you wanted to be a lawyer at that point?
No, I really didn't. I kind of stumbled into college. I had, I think, a unconventional path. I was very lucky to get into U Chicago. I really was not a very good high school student. And for me, when I was a kid, like when I was 17, I was not thinking about a professional career path. I was like, I'm going to go be like Mick Jagger or Jack Kerouac. Like that was what I was thinking when I was 17. Uh, and so when I got to college, I had always been interested in government and I had always been, I guess you would say, worldly in that way. Like I read The Economist and was interested in global affairs. And so it kind of just made sense for me to study political science. After doing it for a couple of years, I ended up doing a lot of economics too. The political science major at U Chicago was very flexible at the time, so I could really basically take whatever I wanted, and I kind of constructed my own major. But yeah, I wasn't really thinking about law school until a little bit later.
Really? So you started the LSAT journey maybe like after you graduated?
No, it was I studied for the LSAT my fourth year of college. I was a senior.
Nice. I mean, you obviously did well because you went to Harvard from 2015 to 2018. And what was it like being a law student at Harvard?
It was great. I had a great time. Harvard is really nice to go to law school because it's such a big school that you can really find your people, and it's very easy to, maybe it's not very easy, but over 3 years, I think a lot people can find people that they really gel with and have a really good relationship with. And that was awesome in law school because I had a lot of fun and made great friends. But it's also paid huge dividends in my life ever since because my friends are successful in many different industries across the United States, across the world, really. And I still am very close to that network. I mean, just here yesterday, I had a bunch of them over to watch the Super Bowl, and everybody's doing their own thing, but we're all successful in different ways.
Amazing. And did you find that most of your friends were interested in going into like big law or the government, or what did that spread look like in your circle of friends?
It's interesting. I feel like I was very interested. When I started law school, I wanted to go into government. That was my goal. I had worked in government before I went to law school. And my first year of law school, I worked in an internship in government in Maine. I was from Maine. Uh, and so I was very interested in going into government. I did not find that most people were interested in the direct to government route when I was in law school. Most people were interested either in big law or in like some kind of government attorney. But like, there's a distinction here, right? Like I was interested. I wanted to go like uh, work for like the governor's office somewhere. But most people wanted to work like being a public defender. Some people wanted to be U.S. attorneys. That was much more common than the kind of like policy-oriented government work that I was more interested in at the time.
Interesting. And I'm curious, I mean, because Berkeley is obviously, huge public interest orientation with folks really wanting to work in the government. Like, what was OCI like at Harvard? Like, what did that recruitment process look like?
Uh, there's a hotel in Cambridge called the Charles Hotel, and I don't know if they still do it this way because I haven't done big law recruiting in a few years. But yeah, at Harvard, you come back a week before school starts, and every law firm in the world, and also some consulting firms like BCG is there, every law firm in the world rents rooms in the Charles, and we all go and sit in the ballroom and be stressed. And then you go and do screener interviews with like every law firm in the world. It's very, yeah, it's an intense week. And then, so you do all the screener interviews and then you would go, it'd be like happy hours afterwards. You go meet attorneys, or whatever people do
Yeah.
during
And so
OCI.
everyone who wanted big law got big law, basically, right?
Yeah, more or less. I mean, out of Harvard, there were definitely like some people who maybe didn't get an offer right away, but yeah, it wasn't at the time at least, and I can't speak to it now. If you were interested in big law out of Harvard, you could probably get it somewhere.
Gotcha. And you sort of knew, did you know you wanted to be a litigator?
No, I didn't even really want to be in big law. It's just such an easy proposition when you're 23 or 24, uh, because they're like, okay, well, come work for a summer. We'll pay you whatever, some absurd amount of money, more money than I had ever made in my life. Like I had made like minimum wage, and then I made like $30 an hour as a research assistant when I was at U Chicago, and then I made minimum wage again as a public servant in Chicago. And so more money than I had ever made in a year in my entire life offered like over a summer. So the proposition was really easy, and they're like, you don't have to do anything. Like just come do a 15-minute interview and we'll give you a job. So it was really lack of friction more than anything else that led me to do big law initially. And I didn't have any idea about practice area either, because maybe I just wasn't thoughtful about that kind of thing at the time. But yeah, I was very much a blank slate going into big law.
Nice. Well, you did 5 years at one firm and 2 years at another. So I'm assuming you summered at the first firm and you took that offer and you came back.
Yeah, I started at Weill Gotshal. I summered there and then I went back. As you said, I became a litigator. And then I was there for however long and then moved to McDermott, Will and Emery. And that was when I transitioned into being a crypto attorney.
Yeah, that's what's so interesting is you were a litigator and then you pivoted. And so, I mean, I'm super curious about that pivot, but I do want to ask just about your first 5 years at the first firm. So you were doing litigation there. I mean, what was that experience like as you progressed from being a junior up until being more of a mid-level?
Yeah, it was interesting. I really got thrown into the fire as a junior. So I was a commercial litigator at a while. Uh, but specifically, I worked in a lot of trial work. I wouldn't say it was my specialty per se. Like I did other stuff too from time to time, but I just very early on, I got put on trials for Johnson and Johnson, which has a lot of trials. And so I ended up doing this very early and got a lot of responsibility through doing that very early. And so I kind of developed a specialty. So that was really what I did when I was at Weil was I represented like very large companies at very high stakes trials, which is really fun. A trial is just like sports in slow motion. You get really invested. You work literally all the time. I work 20-hour days constantly. But you are very tight with your team and very invested, and you get to see the fruits of your labor immediately play out on a stage in New Jersey, in my case.
Amazing. I mean, any sort of regrets in going down that path?
No, I am just not a regretful person. I don't know. Like, if I was doing it now and knew everything that I know now, I probably would do different things. But I don't regret it because I didn't know what I know now, and there wasn't any way that I could have. So, so I just did the best I could.
Yeah, and since we're on the topic, like, talking about 20-hour days and stuff like that, do you think there's a difference in culture depending on whether you're in New York or Chicago or in San Francisco Big Law?
I don't know. I've only worked like all my firms have been in New York. I did work at McDermott. I had a lot of associates who were in Chicago. They worked just as hard as I did. Otherwise, I don't know because these firms, I mean, the firms that I've worked at have been pretty nationwide, if not global, and so I don't really see, or I didn't really see a scene between the different offices.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. I mean, so let's talk about the transition from Weil. I mean, and it was a huge pivot, right? Because then you started, playing more in the fintech and crypto space. How did that even happen?
Yeah, so I mean, I really started when I was still at Weil. I had started just writing articles. This guy, Jay Minga, who's very helpful in my career, was like, "Hey, Aaron, do you want to write some articles about crypto with me?" And John Mastando, who's a partner a while still. And I was like, "Sure, yeah, that sounds cool." So he put me on them and loaded me up and was like, "Okay, this is our topic in crypto." And so I just went in and started doing research and looking at it. And I think I'm a relatively curious person on my own. And so I just read a bunch of books and learned everything I could about crypto. And in the process of doing this, I was like, this is really interesting. Like, this could be a valuable career for somebody who is a young lawyer because it's relatively uncertain. There aren't that many experts on it. I could develop kind of a niche. And that was my thought process at the time. And I was worried at the time too. Litigation is a great career. Like litigating, as I said, can be really fun. And people who love it really love it and are totally thrilled to spend their lives doing it. But if you don't want to be in big law for your life as a litigator, it can be somewhat challenging to find good exit options, especially if you're not proactive. And I had seen while I was, say, like second year or third year at Weil, I had seen a lot of more senior associates get pushed up. Weil has a counsel track, so you do 7 years as an associate, then you are either promoted to counsel or pushed out, and then you do 3 years at counsel, and you're either promoted to partner or pushed out, right? And so by the time that I was like a third year, I was starting to see people get pushed out who I had worked under, who I knew were smart and capable people, but who were having real issues finding good exit options. Um, and seeing that, I was like, well, this is a trap. Like, I don't want to be that person. I don't want that to happen to me. I need to like figure out a way to develop some kind of specialty where I'm going to have market value because the truth is there are thousands and thousands of first, second, and third year litigators in New York, and there are merely hundreds of good in-house jobs for litigators, and there are like just as few, if not fewer, partner jobs as litigators. So if you do that
Wow.
math, like some of those people are getting pushed out into I don't know what because I left. But it wasn't good math. Was basically my thought process. So when I found cryptocurrency and I started writing about it, I was like, okay, maybe this is an opportunity for me to find a niche where I can have some market power, where I can develop a specialty, and that was my thought process there.
It's amazing. So you would say like 3, 4 years into being at Weil, and would you say you started getting more like intentional about your career?
Yeah, I think, yeah, I probably did. And I had earlier than that also been thinking about other paths. Like I almost went to work for Kamala Harris in 2019. This was like at the end of Trump's first term when she was running for president the first time. I was like applying to political jobs because again, that was what I thought I was going to do. I was thinking like, okay, I'm going to go into government. Maybe this will be a good springboard. I can go work on our campaign. She was running hot. I was like, she's going to win. That didn't happen. So I was lucky that I didn't take that job and I stayed in New York. But that was kind of, I had been thinking about it for a while. And when I didn't end up leaving and I ended up staying and then the pandemic happened, it gave me a lot of time to think, write a book and, and think
Yeah.
about like what would be a more valuable career trajectory.
Amazing. And on a personal level, are you big into investing in crypto?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely I hold crypto now. I've bought and sold crypto at times in the past. I wouldn't say like I'm a degen trader because I spend my time focusing on regulatory structure so that I can help my clients.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely I do trade crypto. I own the crypto and hold it. But yeah, there's people who are more degen than I am.
Nice. So 3 years into Wild, would it be fair to say that you were thinking about, going for the counsel or partnership role at that point, and that's when things changed?
No, I really wasn't. Like I didn't like I mean, you probably heard this when I talked about OCI, but I was really not like trying to be a big law partner as a goal professionally. I didn't ever really want that. But you are like thrust into the fire whenever you take a job, like you have to think about what's going to happen if I keep doing this, like what does the future hold? And so you're forced to think about it. And it's hard when you're doing it to have good perspective on like whether or not you have market value or exit options. It tends to lead to a kind of myopic perspective, I think. So I definitely like I thought about it, but ultimately I knew like this was never my goal to be like work my way up, grind through the ranks of associates, and eventually emerge as a partner.
Gotcha. So when you did transition to McDermott, was that inspired by any of the writing you were doing, or how did you get sort of connected to McDermott?
Yeah, I took a little bit. I took a while because I had written the crypto stuff, and I was like, okay, this is valuable. Like I should do this, but it wasn't necessarily a super clear career path at the time. There's tons. I mean, there's tons of law firms that have crypto groups now, fintech groups. At the time, I mean, I'm sure like Cooley, Latham, and Fenwick were all doing crypto stuff, but it was far less common in like 21, early 22 for there to be established groups. And I was a litigator. All these groups were like privacy or like tech transactions groups. Some were securities litigators who had kind of like retooled a little bit to do crypto. So I had like a weird profile to do it, and there weren't a lot of groups to do it. So I basically just started trying to network. Like I would take meetings with people at all kinds of different firms and be like, how does this work? Like, how did you become a crypto attorney? Like, tell me everything that I need to know. Like, and none of those people offered me jobs, but it was kind of like helpful on the margins. And then I linked up with a recruiter and I ended up getting an offer at another large firm, which wasn't the one I ended up going to, and accepted the offer to be a securities litigator, but with a focus on crypto. Like I was like, I'm going to come in and do crypto. And they're like, come in as a securities litigator and we'll give you some crypto. And to be fair, that firm has done a lot of crypto since, so I probably would have gotten it. But yeah, I got that. And then I had like a conflicts issue, which I had never heard of before. But yeah, I guess Weil Gotshal throws their weight around a little bit sometimes in these bankruptcies. And somebody at this firm was salty about something somebody at Weil Gotshal had done. And so I had a conflicts issue and I got delayed for like several months. And they were like, we're going to get you through, but you're like delayed. And so while I was delayed, I was like, well, I'm going to keep looking at other firms. Like, I'm not going to wait for you to do whatever your multi month conflict process. And that was how I ended up finding McDermott. A recruiter just sent me the listing, and I went and did an interview with Joe Evans, who was the partner there who hired me. And I really liked him. Like he was a couple years older than me, which was cool. He had kind of a like cowboy mentality.
So you got hired into McDermott, and I want to ask, like, what's your take on like the value of recruiters? Obviously, it sounds like that was hugely helpful, but what's your take on that?
I loved working with a recruiter. Honestly, I thought it was super helpful. I always tried to mine them for gossip about different law firms because they talk to everybody and know a lot. Um, yeah, I thought that working with recruiters was very helpful. They weren't they weren't all good. I mean, some of them. That's the thing. It's like when you get a recruiter, they're kind of like serving as your agent, and you don't know them that well. So sometimes they're going to go and do things that you wouldn't do at law firms. And there were definitely times where I heard back stories about things that a recruiter had done or said, and I was like, I that's bad. But the beauty is you can just fire that recruiter, and it's very easy to find a new one. So yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I liked working with recruiters. I thought it was very helpful. I would say if you have a friend working at a firm, it's probably better practice to reach out to them rather than going through a recruiter. Um, just because then they'll get whatever the recruiting bonus is, and it's also a good look on the firm, uh, like for you to know someone there and be able to get a good personal recommendation. And honestly, if you do have a friend somewhere and you don't go through them, the partner is probably going to ask like, why didn't this person go through you? And then you have to hope that they really like you and say something nice because you've potentially cost them however much money.
Wow, interesting. So you worked with a recruiter, and you mentioned there was another offer you had signed. So what ended up happening with that one?
Yeah, I mean, I was in conflicts hell, as I said. So I went and got this other job, and then after I got the offer, I kind of agonized over it for like a weekend and thought about which one I wanted to do. Because the other firm was like more highly ranked than McDermott. You know, there was like a reason that you might prefer it, but ultimately, I felt like McDermott was the more risk-on option. Like it had more upside. I was doing exactly what I wanted to do. And if it worked out, it was going to be like a really good springboard for me because I could credibly say, like, I have this expertise because I've been doing it. So that was my thinking. And I ended up taking McDermott, and I don't know, I called the partner at the other place and they understood because I had been in.
Nice. Amazing. And you worked on some pretty interesting projects at McDermott. Are you able to talk about any that were especially interesting?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Voyager bankruptcy was definitely the biggest case that we did. I mean, I don't know if you saw like 22 crypto bankruptcies were enormous. FTX was the biggest one, but there was also like Genesis, 3AC. 3AC was technically outside of the US, but 3AC was an enormous one as well. And Voyager was like a very large one, kind of in the middle between Three Arrows Capital and FTX. And we were the creditors counsel for them. So that was a really, I had started 5 months before this bankruptcy happened. So I'd been working for a little while. And then we heard that Voyager had popped. And so now there's like a race of bankruptcy teams to go pitch for the various roles. I mean, bankruptcies have a bunch of different roles. There's debtors counsel, which is really like debtors counsel is almost always Kirkland or Weil. Solcrom got FTX, but it's usually like Weil or Kirkland getting debtors counsel. And our group was not pitching for debtors counsel. We pitched for creditors committee. And the creditors committee was really powerful in crypto exchanges because your creditors are almost all depositors. They're almost all people who have put money into the exchange. And so when we got it, I did like a month of pitch decks and like preparing for talking to the committee and whatever. When we got it, then we just hit the ground running, and we did like an investigation. First step, we went and did depositions of all the executives at Voyager, tried to figure out what happened. Basically what the investigation is like you're reconstructing what happened that led up to the bankruptcy. There will be some story because there are all these first day filings during a bankruptcy, but you're trying to find like either color for those, like fill in the blanks of that first day filing. And you're trying to like figure out any way that it's wrong. And you're trying to like, as a creditor, you're trying to figure out like, okay, is our assets going to come in? Like what will lead to assets coming in? How can we make our creditors whole, basically, right? So we did an investigation over the summer. It was super intense. I mean, we're doing depositions every day. We were in Kirkland Ellis' office every day doing depositions. I was deposing like the CFO of a public company as like a fourth year associate or something.
Wow.
It was very cool. And then after that ended, we wrote a long report explaining what happened during the investigation, explaining our findings, and then you go into just trying to confirm the plan. So after that, first thing we did after that, we tried to sell it to FTX. Then FTX blew up. Then we tried to sell it to Binance. And this is not just us. This is us in concert with Kirkland, who are debtors counsel. Debtors counsel is probably leading the charge here, but like creditors committee is very powerful in this too. So we definitely had some say. Maybe we thought we had more say than we did, but we had some say. So then we tried to sell it to Binance, and then Binance turned out to, it didn't end up working out with Binance. And the SEC sued to prevent us from completing the transaction because of terms that we had in the plan exempting. It's a whole bankruptcy thing.
Wow.
Anyway,
This
it
is
didn't
just
end up working.
all new territory, right? I mean, there's no precedent in any of these types of cases.
Yeah, I mean, bankruptcy, there's lots of precedent, but it is like, because there are definitely issues like that are crypto specific that were issues of first impression. And this is something like, there's something that was really cool about being a crypto lawyer in 22 is like, there were times when I went in, like I went to District of Connecticut and argued an issue, and I don't think anyone had ever argued about this before. Like it's like crypto specific issues that as far as I can tell, had never come up. And so you go in and you win a motion and you argue, and then like you're like building the future. It's very cool. It was very fun.
Nice. And so when did that entrepreneurial itch start hitting and you started thinking about finding your own firm?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, like I never really dreamed of rising up through the big law ranks. And for better or worse, I probably had like some ego, and I felt like I was like a very good associate, which I was. Like I was in my first year at McDermott, I was like, McDermott has like associate rankings. I was like one of the highest ranked associates at McDermott. Like empirically, I was like, I'm looking at my own record, and I am like succeeding at a high level in this role that I'm in.
What was the KPI for that?
It's hours, really. Like I think hours are the most important. I build like 3,000 hours that year.
So you were grinding.
Yeah, I was grinding. Hours are, but it's also like law firms work a lot on evaluations. Like evaluations are very, very influential in your career in big law, and they're a little bit gamified. But yeah, I mean, people being happy with you and having hours high in conjunction leads to high ratings within the firm. And McDermott is a little bit atypical in this, in that they like actually consider like your rating, and it makes a difference in your career trajectory and like your outcomes there. I guess it's just a little bit different. But anyway, I I had like a sense that I was good at this. And I remember I had a annual performance review where they were like, "Yeah, you're doing good at this," and I was like, what's the deal? Like, how's this progression? And they like didn't want to talk to me about it. And then I went to talk to my boss about it, and he was like, and I was like, what's the deal with this? He's like, well, like officially, you can become a partner at the end of your 6 year as McDermott policy, but the New York office has a lap year. And I was like, a lap year? Like, what are you talking about? Like, it's not the firm policy, but New York does just for uh, its own druthers. And so I was like, I don't think it's like efficient for me to spend 3 more years doing basically the same thing to try to get to the role that would have been like the next role up. Like I was unhappy with being unable to like distinguish myself further uh, by performance, which is a big problem in big law. I think. I mean, like
Wow.
it's the tranches of associates. You could only really progress through annual promotion, and you can't even get a title bump for 7 years. Like, I mean, I guess they just assume that people are willing to do that indefinitely, and many people are. But yeah, I wasn't.
I mean, you spent just over 7 years in big law, which is interesting. But it sounds like, yeah, they had a sort of a more convoluted process, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, I spent a long time in big law. I was at the end of my. I had a 6 year when I left because one of the years is the summer year.
Gotcha.
I was a 6 year when I left. So I was like 2 calendar years before I was going to be up for promotion,
Gotcha.
and I probably would have made it, but I thought I had more value in doing my own thing.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like things worked out. You founded Brogan Law, which is amazing,
Mhm.
and you've been doing it for 1 year now. So, I mean, how is that entrepreneurship's journey, especially in founding your own law firm? Is it as lonely as they say? Like, how is business development? How is getting everything started?
I don't think it's lonely at all. I talk to people all the time. I know like the first thing I did when I started a law firm was I knew people who already had professional service firms of their own, like small solo shops or like small law firms. I immediately talked to them as much as I could. And then I tried to find anyone else who was doing like other comparable or similar, like small VCs, other lawyers that I didn't know. Like I reach out to other lawyers at small law firms weekly, if not like twice weekly. And I'm just
Wow.
like, hey, like I see that we're kind of doing the same thing. We should meet. And then I'll like, get a coffee with them if they're in New York, or I'll get on Google Meet or whatever and just talk to them. So yeah, I don't find it lonely at all. I talk to people all the time. I think
And
it's
is that for like just networking connections, referrals, or is that more sort of learn sort of what they're doing?
both. I mean, 100%. Like it's valuable to me. I get referrals through my network of speaking to other attorneys, but it's also like I had no idea how to start a law firm, and I don't really know how you could because you have to do it. Uh, and I was like, I literally have no idea how to do this. I have to find other people who have done it and ask them how you do it. And that's what I like. I literally just asked that question to like 200 people, and
Yeah.
then tried to like put together a composite of what they told me, plus my own theory.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I mean, you have such good SEO and search ranking. You're writing a lot. You have blog posts. You have like an email newsletter. So I'm curious, how is the current state of business development at your firm?
It's honestly it's great right now, but I think it might be like a noisy metric, so I don't read too much into it. Like yeah, I've been getting every single day I get a new like literally every day I get a new inbound of business. Like it's doing really well right now. I think
Wow.
some of that is probably like a Trump bump where Trump coming in has led to a lot of people thinking that the regulatory environment for cryptocurrency is improving, which it probably is. Um, like, yes, none of the laws have changed, none of the regs have changed yet, but the fact that there are new regulators in and a new approach to regulation suggests that crypto law is probably going to be um, it's going to be easier to operate a cryptocurrency company in the United States for the next 4 years. So I think a lot of companies that have been thinking about it are starting now. But also, I mean, maybe my SEO, like biz dev strategy has been working, or maybe it's just noise. But yeah, it's going really well right now.
That's amazing. Yeah, I saw your commentary on Trump's meme coin, which was
Yeah.
kind of interesting to see. But just like on that topic, like as you're advising these founders and companies, like what's like the biggest risk that folks should be thinking about when they're entering the space?
It really depends on what your product is. I mean, like, if you're going to try to launch a cryptocurrency token in the United States, like for the last 4 years, that would have been like presumptively illegal to do. And you would have had to find some avenue to make it legal. Like maybe a stable coin would be legal. Maybe you could register it and do it as a tokenized security. Maybe you could do it as an exempt security. A lot of people did it offshore. A lot of people set up like a Cayman Foundation BVA opco and did it that way. So, that's one risk profile. Like if you're trying to launch a token, a lot of my clients are in DeFi, decentralized finance, and that's like a completely different risk profile. Like you often have the token risk profile as you would with any other project because you're trying to launch a token, but you also have now like a derivative risk profile from this product, which is avoided in like a completely different way or possibly not at all, and is hard to kind of parse. That's why being a lawyer in the space is so interesting, is because like a lot of this stuff has been presumptively illegal, and it takes creative approaches to find paths through that like will work. It can
Gotcha.
be a little bit scary, but it's also a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, just looking back on your journey, is there anything, whether it's with starting your own firm or working in big law, any sort of advice that you wish, you could give to the younger generation or folks that are recent graduates that want to go into big law or start their own firms?
I think there is like a lot of path dependency in law, which is the thing that I didn't realize when I was younger, or maybe I did realize and just didn't know how to deal with it. But when I was like doing OCI, I really didn't know the difference between practice groups or what they did. And part of that is because it's very opaque and difficult to understand from the outside. Like, I don't even know how even when I was in Big Law, when I was at Weil, and I was a litigator and only worked on litigation matters, I didn't know what other corporate groups did in the firm. Um, but I would say, like, if I was going to try to start a career as a lawyer now, I would make like far more effort than I made to figure that out, because it really makes an enormous difference what practice group
Yeah.
you're in. And like ultimately, I think making that decision is highly highly influential in your life. There's a lot of path dependency. It's really hard to retool, and you might like be able to do it, but people are going to ask you to take a year cut. I luckily did not have to take a year cut, but people will ask you to take a year cut. There'll be all kinds of challenges, and so I think
Yeah.
just thinking about that and understanding the path dependency, like the time to figure out what you're going to do, as unfortunate as it is like during your summer associate gig or like sometime before you start. Like,
Earlier.
yeah, it's like earlier.
Yeah, it's just so like insanely front loaded these days. Like there's in some cases they're giving out 1L offers before they even see the grades, which is in the first semester. So yeah, I mean, just doing that research and being intentional, it sounds like is your advice, which is amazing advice. Yeah, go ahead.
No, yeah, I was just gonna say I second that. Yeah, I agree. I think I don't know where you find that. I genuinely I don't like. I don't have advice on like where you figure out how different practice groups work and like what they're doing, but that's like the crucial secret that I think would really unlock a lot of alpha for your 1Ls and 0Ls.
Maybe just talking to folks, just like you're doing, and starting your firm is
Yeah.
just as many people as possible.
Yeah.
But awesome, Aaron. Well, this was such a great interview. Can you maybe just end by sharing more about your firm and what kind of business that you work on?
Yeah, first of all, such a pleasure to talk. Thank you for having me on. Yeah, my firm, Brogan Law PLC, it's based in Brooklyn, New York. We cover cryptocurrency, prediction markets, derivatives, securities, anything kind of in that emerging technology space I cover. You can find my writing on CoinDesk, Cointelegraph. I'm frequently cited in both as an expert on cryptocurrency, prediction markets, derivatives, securities law. And yeah, we're taking new clients. So if anyone is watching right now and is in the crypto space or wants to launch a crypto project, you're not going to get better advice than you'll get from me and my team. So hit me up. My email is aaron@broganlaw.xyz, and buy my book, Let the Big Dog Eat by Aaron Brogan.
Don't forget the book. Love it. Awesome, Aaron. Thank you so much.
Thank you.